Clearly, I'd made a god of my old life. Clearly, I'd made a god of how other people see me. Clearly, I cared about how I was perceived publicly, because when I was subject to allegations, I was affected, negatively impacted by that. And what I've learned through this little period of suffering, primarily because of my beautiful little boy and what he has been through and what we've been through as a family, but also because I've had to alter my perspective on how I'm regarded publicly and how the world treats those kind of stories and this extraordinary phenomena that we're all living through, that we're all aware of, because it's happening sort of relatively frequently, and sometimes it seems very deliberate and deployed, and there seems to be hierarchies and scales and legitimacy, and you have to be so sort of respectful when talking about it, both because I was a very promiscuous person, and that's a kind of a moral behavior that needs assessing and remedying, but not from a criminal perspective, but from a moral one. Mm-hmm. And because these are very serious issues, and there are people that are seriously affected by the type of things that have been alleged against me.
So you mentioned so you get this crazy media hit piece on you. When was this? This was like September, last fall, right? So it's last September. Your son had just been born. Now he has this heart thing. And I remember you were texting me from the hospital, I think maybe even the day he was having surgery, because I was just trying to see how I could help relative to the public insanity. How much of that kind of shifted all the spiritual stuff that you're going through now? I mean, you sort of described it as saying that like you knew what was real suddenly, but what a weird thing. You bring a new life into the world, and also your old life is under assault.
It felt biblical. And it's what I've come to, what I feel like I've been shown is something that, you know, when you sort of learn something, I'm supposed to already know this. Mm-hmm. I've actually even discussed this. I've already said this out loud. I've seen myself saying this. Why am I learning this now? Here's what I mean. The first commandment, thou shalt worship no other gods than me. Clearly, I'd made a god of my old life. Clearly, I'd made a god of how other people see me. Clearly, I cared about how I was perceived publicly, because when I was subject to allegations, I was affected, negatively impacted by that. And what I've learned through this little period of suffering, primarily because of my beautiful little boy and what he has been through and what we've been through as a family, but also because I've had to alter my perspective on how I'm regarded publicly and how the world treats those kind of stories and this extraordinary phenomena that we're all living through, that we're all aware of, because it's happening sort of relatively frequently, and sometimes it seems very deliberate and deployed, and there seems to be hierarchies and scales and legitimacy, and you have to be so sort of respectful when talking about it, both because I was a very promiscuous person, and that's a kind of a moral behavior that needs assessing and remedying, but not from a criminal perspective, but from a moral one. Mm-hmm. And because these are very serious issues, and there are people that are seriously affected by the type of things that have been alleged against me. What it has led me to do is recognize, to go through a deep reckoning and understanding. If something, this is what I believe now, the reason that I've become Christian is because if something happens to you, it's meant to happen to you. I can't engage in, that shouldn't have happened, that's unfair, that's been said. I recognize that the reality you live is the reality that you're meant to experience. And I'm actually incredibly grateful to have been given the opportunity to see how much hubris and grandiosity still lived in me, and presumably still does, because annihilation is good for bringing you close to God.
So do you think, say 2 weeks before all hell breaks loose with that, do you feel that you were really going down the wrong path, or it was just like little blinders that you had on certain things?
Yeah, I don't think I was sort of, like, I don't think it was like seriously going down the wrong path, because one, I'm in recovery. I don't drink, I don't take drugs. I have a pretty stringent program around my sort of sexual conduct as a married man, obviously. But beyond that, I don't look at pornography. I don't masturbate. I'm pretty careful about what I do with my eyes, actually, because if you have a background as an addict, you are forced to reckon with and recognize the tendency towards objectification. Objectification, I suppose, is just, even like with you, Dave, I could look at you as just, oh, this is a person who can facilitate things for me, a person with power and influence and connections and relationships. And if I'm not careful, I'll drift into seeing you that way. Mm-hmm. And I can't afford to do that anymore. I have to live on a plane of spirituality, of recognizing I'm a mortal person, you're a mortal person. We're here to be kind to one another and love one another. And when I inevitably forget that and start thinking, oh, maybe they can give me some insights into the tech and how to build this beautiful soft lighting. And I love that sliding shot. Yeah. To recognize that, oh, I've
Wait, so you don't want my guy to help you or what? I can't tell anymore.
I do. I'm just trying to find a Christian way to do that.
So in a weird way, you're thankful for everything that happened in some bizarre sense.
Actually, yes, I am thankful because I've come to recognize how much grace I've been shown. I've come to recognize that I live a really blessed life. I've got incredible children. I've got an amazing wife. I've got incredible friends. I've got a beautiful opportunity to live truthfully. We're alive. We all know this now at a really unusual time. This isn't some fin de siècle generational narcissism where everyone thinks they're the chosen generation. It seems to me that there are a lot of apex events taking place, a lot of a sort of a cluster of apocalypses. I don't even know how to apocalypti. Yeah. I don't know how to pluralize apocalypse. You shouldn't need to know. So it's, I think, beneficial to recognize that you are living through significant times and that you have to make significant choices, that you can't live in illusion, that you have to recognize an awakening is necessary personally, on a personal level.
So that notwithstanding, before you came to that conclusion, at the height of all the craziness, did you ever think of just getting out altogether? Or at any point, I guess, along your journey, the fame, the money, like you don't have to do any of this. You don't have to do a daily show. You don't have to. You could disappear and be with your kids all the time and everything else. I mean, is there some piece of you that has that desire?
Sometimes. And I think since becoming Christian, I am learning in my choices to recognize that as Rick Warren says, the first 4 words of his book, it's not about you. It's not about you. I'm reminded that if my aim is self-fulfillment and if I am the center of my universe, then I am probably going in the wrong direction. If I can find a new way to do this that isn't about self, I don't want to give myself a hard time because I've always had kind of twin motivations. I've always had the kind of show-off gene, but I've always been very dedicated and really cared about what I do. And I've always really thought, how can I be more useful? How can I be more helpful? Like most of us, I've a mix of traits and I vacillate between self and altruism, for want of a better phrase. Now I know that that game is over, that now I have to find a way into continual service. I can't afford anymore to fall into the vacuum of self. And I still think I might. I'm ready to be led. I'm ready to be shown. I'm ready to learn more. I don't know what's going to happen anymore.
And it's almost like an impossible thing to traverse because everywhere you go, everyone knows who you are. Basically as simple as that, right? So you can want to put that aside and put the ego aside, but you walk into a restaurant, people know who you are. You walk into my studio, my guys want to take a picture with you. That tension is just going to always exist. And well, I guess short of some, major shift.
Yes. Like celebrity, as you know, is something that you learn to negotiate with. Look, I've been around a lot of famous people like you have. So you recognize, maybe people give you attention, but they'd also give attention to a bunch of other people. So what's the big deal?
Yeah.
I recognize that. I'm looking to not to validate myself through other people's impressions of me. And this is why the Christianity is working so well. It's funny because I watched Larry David make an old season of Curb where he talks about how it's like something about worshipping a guy that he thinks is like...
Oh, when he was converting, that whole season when he was converting, right? When he thinks he was it wasn't his parents that actually had him, he was adopted by the Christian family. Yeah.
Yeah. And I actually like the idea of worshipping a God come to earth in human form, because for my humility to recognize, I'm just another person in the world. Like, I'm not God. And I know that should be self-evident to anyone, but sometimes in practice, we're living as if we are God. We're living as if our fulfillment is the only set of values that are worth pursuing.
If you're looking for more uncensored opinions from today's thought leaders, check out our media playlist. And if you want to watch full interviews on a variety of topics, watch our full episode playlist, all right over here. And to get notified of all future videos, be sure to subscribe and click the notification bell.